From the time I was a teenager, I had one dream that kept me motivated through the dullness of school, the countless part-time jobs, and the long nights when sleep seemed like a luxury: owning my dream car. I wasn't talking about something flashy just for the sake of attention. No, this car represented my independence, my determination, and the countless sacrifices I had made. It was a sleek midnight blue coupe with a polished chrome finish, leather interior that still carried the scent of a fresh showroom, and a smooth, purring engine that roared like it was born to run. I had pictures of it taped above my desk, saved as my phone's lock screen, and every time I felt drained or hopeless, I'd look at it and remind myself why I was working so hard, while my friends were out spending money on clothes, parties, or expensive gadgets. I was scrubbing floors at a small diner, stacking shelves at the local store, and taking every overtime shift I could get. I didn't complain because I knew that every coin I dropped into my savings jar was one step closer to that car. My parents knew about my dream. In fact, I'd talked about it so often that even our neighbors probably knew. At first, they were supportive, telling me how proud they were that I was learning the value of money and working for something I truly wanted. But as the months turned into years, I began to sense a change. It wasn't obvious at first, just small comments from my mother like, "You know, your sister could use some help with college fees," or my father hinting that I should be more family-oriented instead of chasing material things. I brushed it off, thinking they were just being parents, always concerned about fairness between siblings. My younger sister Lily was different from me in every way. She was outgoing, charming, and never short of attention from anyone. She had a way of convincing people to do things for her, from teachers extending deadlines to friends covering her share of dinner bills. I loved her, or at least I thought I did, but I also knew she never had to work for anything the way I did. If she wanted a new phone, she'd get it. If she wanted to go on a trip, my parents would find a way to pay for it. Still, I didn't mind, because I believed that what I was building for myself was mine alone, earned through my own sweat and sleepless nights. When I finally had enough money to buy that car, it felt like everything had been worth it. I went to the dealership with my hands trembling, signed the papers, and drove it home with the windows down and the wind in my hair, feeling like the world finally belonged to me. My parents congratulated me. My dad even took it for a spin, and Lily asked if she could borrow it sometime for a special date night. I laughed it off, telling her that maybe once I got used to driving it, I'd consider it. For the first few weeks, it was pure bliss. Every morning, I'd wake up excited just to take the long route to work. Every weekend, I'd clean and wax it until it gleamed like a jewel. But then, without warning, everything changed. One evening, I came home from work and found an empty space where my car had been parked. My first thought was theft. I felt my chest tighten, my palms sweat as I frantically looked around, hoping it had been moved. That's when I heard my parents in the kitchen, talking in hushed tones. My father's words burned into my mind like acid. "At least now Lily can focus on her future without worrying about money." My mother replied, "She's our daughter, too. We had to help her. That car was just a luxury anyway." My heart dropped, and I felt something inside me break. They had sold my dream. My own parents, the people who had seen me work day and night for years, had taken the one thing I had built for myself and handed it over to my sister in the form of cash for her tuition and expenses. It wasn't just about the car, it was about everything it represented. Everything they had taken without asking, without warning, without caring about how I felt. In that moment, I didn't just feel betrayed. I felt erased. I stood there, in the hallway for what felt like hours, my hands gripping the edge of the wall as their words echoed in my head like a cruel chorus I couldn't silence. My dream wasn't just sold, it was dismissed, degraded into something as trivial as a luxury. As if the years I'd spent grinding away in cheap uniforms, enduring rude customers, and coming home with aching feet every night meant nothing. My chest felt tight, not just with anger but with an emptiness that seemed to expand with every passing second. I walked into the kitchen, my voice shaking but low. "Where's my car?" I asked, my eyes fixed on my father. He didn't even meet my gaze. My mother tried to answer first, her tone calm, almost rehearsed. "Sweetheart, we had to make a difficult decision. Lily's education is important, and so you sold my car." I cut in, my voice growing sharper with every word. My father finally looked at me, but there was no guilt in his eyes, just a stubborn sense of justification. "We're a family. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made for the greater good. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the absurdity of it was too much to process. Sacrifices, I said, my voice trembling. That wasn't your sacrifice to make. That was mine. That was my work, my time, my life. You decided to trade away. My sister, who had been lingering by the doorway, stepped forward with a little smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. Oh, come on, it's not like you can't get another car, she said casually. Besides, this will help me graduate without debt, and isn't that better for everyone? Her tone was drenched in entitlement, and I could feel the heat rise in my face. At that moment, I realized something crystal clear. They didn't see me as an individual with my own goals and boundaries. To them, I was just a resource, someone they could mine for what they needed whenever they wanted. I didn't shout, I didn't cry. Instead, I walked out of the kitchen and up to my room, shutting the door quietly behind me. Inside, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. The anger inside me was no longer wild and chaotic. It was cold, precise, settling into a steady burn that would not go out until I made this right. I started to think about every moment in my life when my parents had prioritized Lily over me, the dance recital they skipped to attend her soccer game, the savings account they drained to buy her a designer prom dress while I wore a thrift store suit to my graduation, the countless times they defended her mistakes while criticizing my successes. All of it formed a picture I could no longer ignore. They had shown me exactly where I stood in their hierarchy, and I would never forget it. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake making plans in my head, not impulsive, reckless revenge, but calculated steps that would make them feel the weight of what they had done. I decided I would leave, not in some dramatic storm out with bags in my hands, but in a way that would make them realize they had lost something they could never replace. I would build myself back up, but this time, they wouldn't get to share in my success. They had sold my dream car for Lily's benefit, and one day, I would make them watch as I returned with something far greater than a car, with a life they were no longer welcome in. And when that day came, their regret would be the only gift I'd give them. The days that followed were a silent war. I didn't argue anymore, didn't bring up the car, didn't even react when Lily came home flaunting the new laptop and clothes she'd bought with her tuition money. I let them think I had accepted it, that maybe I'd gotten over it, but inside, I was sharpening my resolve like a blade. I started working double shifts, but this time, I wasn't saving for something material, I was saving for my escape. I took every side job I could find, from freelance design work to tutoring local high school kids in math. I avoided family dinners, avoided conversations, and when I did speak, my words were clipped, polite, and void of any warmth. I could see my parents noticing the change, but they didn't confront me. Perhaps they thought time would heal the wound, or maybe they were too busy enjoying the glow of being the supportive parents funding Lily's education. Little did they know, every coin I earned, every extra hour I worked was another brick in the wall I was building between us. I sold things I didn't need, cut down my expenses to the bare minimum, and funneled every cent into an account they didn't know existed. At the same time, I began reaching out to old contacts, people I'd met during my car buying journey. Car enthusiasts, small business owners, even a dealership manager who had once offered me a part-time position in sales. I didn't tell them my full plan yet, but I kept those connections alive. The more I worked, the more I felt myself changing. The anger that once made my chest tighten now felt like fuel, propelling me forward. And while my parents thought I was working myself to the bone just to rebuild, I was doing something far more dangerous. I was preparing to rise higher than they could ever imagine. Months passed, and Lily graduated with all the smug satisfaction of someone who thought the world revolved around her. She invited me to her ceremony, but I politely declined, citing work commitments. Truth was, I didn't want to see her in her cap and gown, paid for by the death of my dream. Instead, I spent that day finalizing something I had been quietly building for months, my own small car dealership business. It started with one used car I bought, fixed up, and sold at a profit. Then another. Then 3 more. I reinvested everything, learned the ins and outs of the trade, and before long, I had a small lot filled with cars ready to sell. It wasn't glamorous at first, but it was mine, and I was building it without a single ounce of help from my family. The irony was almost poetic. They had sold my dream car thinking it was just a luxury, and now, Cars themselves were becoming the foundation of my financial independence. By the time a full year had passed, I was making more money than I ever had before, enough to afford not just my original dream car, but a better, newer model. I could have gone out and bought it right then, but I didn't, because this wasn't just about replacing what was taken. It was about returning in a way that would etch regret into their hearts for the rest of their lives. I wanted them to see me arrive, not as the struggling, hopeful kid they could manipulate, but as someone untouchable, someone whose success had bloomed entirely outside their influence. The thought of that day kept me going. Every time I felt tired, I imagined the look on their faces when they realized they had traded my loyalty for a short-term gain for Lily. I imagined pulling up in something that made my original car look like a toy, stepping out in a tailored suit, and letting them choke on their own silence. That day was coming, and I was going to make sure they never forgot it. By the second year, my business wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. I had upgraded from a small rented lot to a proper dealership space with my name on the sign. I had employees now, a steady stream of customers and contacts in the auto world who respected me for my work ethic and smart deals. I kept my success quiet, never posting about it on social media, never telling mutual acquaintances who might run back to my family. I wanted the reveal to come as a shock, a sudden, undeniable realization that I had built something monumental. Without them, every weekend, while they thought I was still working too much, I was meeting suppliers, attending auctions, and networking with people in the luxury car industry. One of those connections opened a door I had never dared to dream of before: access to a rare limited edition supercar, one so exclusive that only a handful existed in the entire country. The moment I saw it, my heart raced. It was beyond my original dream car, beyond anything I had once thought possible for myself. And the best part, I could buy it in cash. I didn't rush. I had the dealer hold it for a month while I finalized my plan. I wanted the purchase and the return to happen on the same day, orchestrated for maximum impact. During this time, I heard bits and pieces about my family's situation through mutual acquaintances. Lily, it seemed, was struggling to find a stable job despite her shiny degree. My parents were quietly helping her out with rent and bills, stretching their finances thin in the process. A small part of me wondered if they regretted using my car money for her now, but I didn't care enough to find out. I wasn't coming back to mend things. I was coming back to remind them exactly who they had underestimated. I timed my return for a Sunday afternoon, knowing they'd all be home. The day before, I visited the dealership, signed the papers, and drove my new car, a masterpiece of engineering in deep metallic crimson, to a private garage I had rented just a few streets away from my parents' house. The sound of its engine was enough to make heads turn from blocks away, but I kept it quiet, waiting for the right moment. That morning, I dressed in a tailored suit, the kind that whispered success without screaming for attention. I wore a watch worth more than the old family car, and every detail of my appearance was deliberate: polished shoes, crisp shirt, confident posture. I wanted them to see, without me saying a word, that I had surpassed every expectation they'd ever had for me. As I walked out of the garage and slid into the driver's seat, I felt a calm I hadn't known in years. This wasn't about revenge in the childish sense of gloating. This was about balance, about returning the sting they had given me with something they couldn't ignore or dismiss. I pulled up to their house slowly, letting the car idle for a few seconds before parking right in the driveway where my old car had once sat. The roar of the engine drew them out, first my father, then my mother, and finally Lily, all standing on the porch with expressions ranging from curiosity to disbelief. My father's eyes immediately scanned the car, recognition and shock flashing across his face as he took in the brand, the model, the sheer rarity of it. My mother's smile faltered as she realized this wasn't just a nice car, this was a statement. And Lily, her jaw actually dropped. I stepped out, straightened my jacket, and met their eyes one by one. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was thick, heavy with the weight of what they were seeing. I could feel their thoughts swirling, questions about how I could afford it, about where I had been, about what I had done to get here. But I didn't give them answers. Not yet. That was the beauty of it, making them sit in the discomfort of their own choices. Before I said a single word, I let the moment stretch. The only sound in the air, the soft ticking of the cooling engine. My father was the first to break the silence, clearing his throat and forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. That's quite a car you've got there, he said, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the strain in his voice. My mother stepped forward, her tone half curious, half wary. Where have you been? We haven't seen you in so long. I kept my expression calm, my voice even working. Building. Living. Lily crossed her arms, her tone dripping with mockery to cover the discomfort I could see in her eyes. Guess selling your old car worked out for you after all, huh? I turned to her slowly, and for the first time in years, I let my anger show. No, Lily. Selling my old car taught me something. It taught me exactly how much my family valued me, which turned out to be less than the cash you could squeeze out of my hard work. My mother opened her mouth to speak, but I raised a hand, stopping her. You don't get to spin this into some noble sacrifice. That car was my dream, something I worked for entirely on my own. You didn't earn it, you didn't buy it, and yet you took it from me without even asking. You decided that my years of effort were yours to give away. I stepped closer, letting my words hit with precision. Do you know what I did after you sold it? I rebuilt. I started from nothing again, but this time, I built something bigger than a car. I built a life where I don't need your approval, your help, or your presence. And the best part, every success I've had since then, you had nothing to do with. My father's jaw tightened, his usual authority stripped away. My mother looked down at the ground, her hands clasped nervously. Lily, however, tried to laugh, though it came out brittle. So what, you came back just to rub it in our faces? I met her gaze without flinching. No. I came back so you'd see what you lost. You didn't just sell my car, you sold my trust, my respect, and any place you might have had in my future. You traded all of that for a quick fix for Lily's life, and now you can live with the result. I turned slightly, glancing back at the car gleaming in the sun. This, I said, gesturing to it, isn't just a car. It's proof that I can succeed without you, and it's a reminder that the next time you think about taking something from me, you won't even have the chance, because you won't be close enough to try. I could feel the sting of my words settling over them, their silence a mix of shame and stubborn pride that wouldn't let them admit they were wrong. I didn't need their admission. The regret was already written all over their faces. I let the weight of my words hang in the air, watching them shift uncomfortably under the truth they had tried so hard to avoid. For a long moment, none of them moved, as if they were hoping I might take it all back, laugh it off, or soften the blow. But there was nothing left to soften. The years of quiet resentment had hardened into something unshakable. I stepped back toward the car, my shoes crunching lightly on the gravel, and opened the driver's side door. The interior gleamed, under the sunlight, the scent of new leather filling the air, a stark contrast to the suffocating atmosphere I'd just left on their porch. I looked at them one last time, my gaze steady, voice low but cutting. You had the chance to be part of my journey, to stand beside me when I reached the top. Instead, you made yourselves strangers. That was your choice. And now, this, gestured toward the car, toward myself, is mine. My mother took a small step forward, her lips parting as if to plead, but my father's hand on her arm stopped her. Even now, pride outweighed remorse, but the flicker of guilt in their eyes told me everything I needed to know. Lily, however, stood frozen, her expression a mix of jealousy and dawning realization. The same girl who had once smirked, while my car disappeared from that driveway, now stood staring at something she would never have. I slid into the seat, the engine roaring to life with a deep, powerful growl that seemed to vibrate through the air between us. Without another word, I shifted into gear and eased down the driveway, my eyes fixed forward. In the rearview mirror, I caught one last glimpse of them standing there, their silhouettes shrinking as I drove away, a picture of three people who had just realized the bridge they'd burned was never going to be rebuilt. As I turned the corner, the sun caught the metallic paint of the car, casting a flash of red across the houses like a final flare before disappearing. The road ahead was wide open, the hum of the engine steady beneath me, and for the first time in years, I felt the same rush I had the day I first bought my dream car. Only now it was amplified by the knowledge that every mile I drove was mine alone, no debts owed, no ties holding me back. Behind me, I left not just the place I'd grown up, but the people who had once mistaken my love for them as something they could take and sell. Ahead of me, there was nothing but freedom, success, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing they would remember this day for the rest of their lives, not because I returned, but because I left again, stronger than ever, and this time, I wasn't coming back.